14 centuries ago, God sent down to humanity the Qur'an as a book of guidance. He called upon people to be guided to the truth by adhering to this book. Since the day of its revelation to the day of resurrection, this last divine book will remain the sole guide for humanity. The matchless style of the Qur'an and the superior wisdom in it are definite evidence that it is the Word of God. In addition, the Qur'an has many miraculous attributes proving that it is a revelation from God. One of these attributes is the fact that a number of scientific truths that we have only been able to uncover by the technology of the 20th century were stated in the Qur'an 1400 years ago. Of course, the Qur'an is not a book of science. However, many scientific facts that are expressed in an extremely concise and profound manner in its verses have only been discovered with the technology of the 20th century. These facts could not have been known at the time of the Qur'an's revelation, and this is still more proof that the Qur'an is the Word of God. In order to understand the scientific miracle of the Qur'an, we must first take a look at the level of science at the times when this holy book was revealed. In the 7th century, when the Qur'an was revealed, Arab society had many superstitious and groundless beliefs where scientific issues were concerned. Lacking the technology to examine the universe and nature, these early Arabs believed in legends inherited from past generations. They supposed, for example, that mountains supported the sky above. They believed that the world was flat and that there were high mountains at its both ends. It was thought that these mountains were pillars that kept the vault of heaven high above. However, all these superstitious beliefs of Arab society before the time of the Prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace, were eliminated with the Qur'an. The verse, "God is he who raised up the heavens without any support," for example, invalidated the belief that the sky remains above because of the mountains. In many other subjects, important facts were revealed at a time when no one could have known them. The Qur'an, which was revealed at a time when people knew very little about astronomy, physics, or biology, contains key facts on a variety of subjects such as the creation of the universe, the creation of the human being, the structure of the atmosphere, and the delicate balances that make life on Earth possible. Let us now take a look at some of the scientific truths revealed in the Qur'an. The origin of the universe is described in the Qur'an in the following verse. He created the heavens and the earth from nothing. This information given in the Qur'an is in full agreement with the findings of contemporary science. The conclusion that astrophysics has reached today is that the entire universe, together with the dimensions of matter and time, came into existence as a result of a great explosion that occurred in no time. This event, known as the Big Bang, produced the entire universe about 15 billion years ago, creating it from nothingness as a result of the explosion of a single point. Modern scientific circles are in agreement that the Big Bang is the only rational and provable explanation of the beginning of the universe and of how the universe came into being. Before the Big Bang, there was no such thing as matter. From a condition of non-existence, in which neither matter nor energy nor even time existed, and which can only be defined metaphysically, matter, energy, and time were all created. This fact, only recently discovered by modern physics, was announced to us in the Qur'an 1400 years ago. In the Qur'an, which was revealed 14 centuries ago at a time when the science of astronomy was still primitive, the expansion of the universe was described like this. And it is we who have constructed the heaven with might, and verily it is we who are steadily expanding it. The word heaven, as stated in this verse, is used in various places in the Qur'an with the meaning of space and universe. Here again, the word is used with this meaning. In other words, in the Qur'an, it is communicated that the universe expands. And this is the very conclusion that science has reached today. Until the dawn of the 20th century, the only view prevailing in the world of science was that the universe has a constant nature and it has existed since infinite time. The research, observations, and calculations carried out by means of modern technology, however, revealed that the universe in fact had a beginning and that it constantly expands. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Russian physicist Alexander Friedmann and the Belgian cosmologist Georges Lemaitre theoretically calculated that the universe is in constant motion and that it is expanding. This fact was proved also by observational data in 1929. While observing the sky with a telescope, Edwin Hubble, the American astronomer, discovered that the stars and galaxies were constantly moving away from each other. A universe where everything constantly moves away from each other implied a constantly expanding universe. The observations carried out in the following years verified that the universe constantly expands. This fact was explained in the Qur'an when it was yet unknown by anyone. This is because the Qur'an is the Word of God, the Creator, and the ruler of the entire universe. While referring to the sun and the moon in the Qur'an, it is emphasized that each moves in a certain orbit. It is He who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. They swim along, each in an orbit. It is mentioned in another verse too that the sun is not static, but moves in a certain orbit. And the sun runs to its resting place. That is the decree of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. These facts communicated in the Qur'an have been discovered by astronomical observations in our age. According to the calculations of experts on astronomy, the Sun is traveling at the enormous speed of 720,000 kilometers an hour in the direction of the star Vega, in a particular orbit called the solar apex. This means that the Sun travels roughly 17,280,000 kilometers a day. Along with the Sun, all planets and satellites within the gravitational system of the Sun also travel the same distance. In addition, all the stars in the universe are in a similar planned motion. That the entire universe is full of paths and orbits, such as this one, is inscribed in the Qur'an as follows: by the sky, full of paths and orbits.
There are more than 100 billion galaxies in the visible universe, and each small galaxy contains approximately 1 billion stars.
Furthermore, each big galaxy contains more than 1 trillion. Most of these stars have planets, and most of those planets have satellites. All of these heavenly bodies move in very precise computed orbits. For millions of years, each has been swimming along in its own orbit in perfect harmony and order with all the others. Moreover, many comets also move along in the orbits determined for them. The orbits in the universe do not only belong to celestial bodies. The galaxies also travel at enormous speeds in computed, planned orbits. During these movements, none of these celestial bodies cut across another's path or collide with another. Indeed, it has been observed that some galaxies pass through each other, with none of their components touching each other. Surely at the time the Qur'an was revealed, humankind did not possess today's telescopes or advanced observation technologies to observe space in a range of millions of kilometers, nor the modern knowledge of physics or astronomy. Therefore, at that time, it was not possible to determine scientifically that space is full of paths and orbits, as stated in the verse. However, this was openly declared to us in the Qur'an that was revealed at that time because the Qur'an is the Word of God. In the Qur'an, God informs us of a very important attribute of the sky. We made the sky a preserved and protected roof, yet still they turn away from our signs. This attribute of the sky has been proved by scientific research done in the 20th century. The atmosphere surrounding the Earth serves crucial functions for the continuity of life. While destroying many meteors, big and small, as they approach the Earth, it prevents them from falling to Earth and harming living things. In addition, the atmosphere filters the light rays coming from space that are harmful to living beings. It is a most striking feature of the atmosphere that it lets only harmless and useful rays, visible light, near ultraviolet light, and radio waves pass through. All of this radiation is vital for life. Near ultraviolet rays which are only partially let in by the atmosphere, are very important for the photosynthesis of plants and for the survival of all living beings. The majority of the intensive ultraviolet rays emitted from the sun are filtered out by the ozone layer of the atmosphere, and only a limited and essential part of the ultraviolet spectrum reaches the Earth. The protective function of the atmosphere does not end here. The atmosphere also protects the Earth from the freezing cold of the space, which is about minus 270 degrees centigrade. It is not only the atmosphere that protects the Earth from harmful effects. In addition to the atmosphere, the Van Allen belt, a layer caused by the magnetic field of the Earth, also serves as a shield against the harmful radiation that threatens our planet. This radiation, which is constantly emitted by the sun and other stars, is deadly to living things. If the Van Allen belt did not exist, the massive outbursts of energy called solar flares that occur frequently in the sun would destroy all life on Earth. The energy transmitted in just one of these flashes detected in recent years was calculated to be equivalent to 100 billion atomic bombs, similar to the one dropped on Hiroshima. "58 hours after the flash, it was observed that the magnetic needles of compasses displayed unusual movement, and 250 kilometers above the Earth's atmosphere, the temperature suddenly increased to 2,500 degrees Celsius. In short, God's perfect system is at work high above the Earth. It surrounds our world and protects it against external threats. Scientists only learned about it recently, yet centuries ago we were informed in the Qur'an about the world's atmosphere functioning as a protective shield.
The 11th verse of Surat at-Tariq in the Qur'an refers to the returning function of the sky.
I swear by heaven which returns. The word Raj, interpreted as return in Qur'an translations, has meanings of sending back or returning. As known, the atmosphere surrounding the Earth consists of many layers. Each layer serves an important purpose for life's benefit. Research has revealed that these layers have the function of turning the materials or rays they are exposed to back into space or back down on Earth. Now let us examine with a few examples this recycling function of the layers encircling the Earth. The troposphere, 13 to 15 kilometers above the Earth, enables water vapor rising from the surface to be condensed and turned back down to Earth as rain. The ozone layer, at an altitude of 25 kilometers, reflects harmful radiation and ultraviolet light coming from space and turns both back into space. The ionosphere reflects radio waves broadcast from the Earth back down to different parts of the world, just like a passive communication satellite, and thus makes wireless communication, radio and television broadcasting possible over long distances. The fact that this property of the sky's layers, which could only be scientifically discovered recently, was declared centuries ago in the Qur'an, once again demonstrates that the Qur'an is the Word of God. One fact about the universe revealed in the verses of the Qur'an is that the sky is made up of 7 layers. It is He who created everything on earth for you, and then directed His attention up to heaven and arranged it into 7 regular heavens. He has knowledge of all things. Then He turned to heaven when it was smoke. In 2 days He determined them as 7 heavens and revealed, in every heaven, its own mandate. The word heavens, which appears in many verses in the Qur'an, is used to refer to the sky of the earth as well as the entire universe. Given this meaning of the word, it is seen that the earth's sky or the atmosphere is made up of 7 layers. Indeed, today it is known that the world's atmosphere consists of different layers that lie on top of each other. Based on the criteria of chemical contents or air temperature, the definitions made have determined the atmosphere of the Earth as 7 layers. According to the limited fine mesh model, a model of atmosphere used to estimate weather conditions for 48 hours, the atmosphere has also 7 layers. According to the modern geological definitions, the 7 layers of atmosphere are as follows: 1. Troposphere. 2. Stratosphere. 3. Mesosphere. 4. Thermosphere. 5. Exosphere, 6. Ionosphere, and 7. Magnetosphere. The Qur'an says, He revealed in every heaven its own mandate. In other words, God is stating that He assigned each heaven its own duty. Truly, each one of these layers has vital duties for the benefit of humankind and all other living things on the earth. Each layer has a particular that masculinity or femininity is created out of sperm poured forth into the womb. That he created in pairs, male and female, out of a drop of sperm, as it is poured forth. The improving disciplines of genetics and molecular biology have scientifically validated the accuracy of this information given by the Qur'an. It is now understood that sex is determined by sperm cells coming from the male, and that the female has no role in the process. Chromosomes are the main elements in determining sex. 2 of the 46 chromosomes that determine the structure of a human being are identified as the sex chromosomes.
These 2 chromosomes are called XY in males and XX in females, because the shapes of the chromosomes resemble these letters.
The Y chromosome carries the genes that code for masculinity, while the X chromosome carries the genes that code for femininity. Formation of a new human being begins with the cross-combination of one of these chromosomes, which exists in males and females in pairs. In females, both components of the sex cell, which divides into 2 during ovulation, carry X chromosomes. The sex cell of a male, on the other hand, produces 2 different kinds of sperm, one that contains X chromosome and the other that contains Y chromosomes. If an X chromosome from the female unites with a sperm that contains an X chromosome, then the baby is female. If it unites with a sperm that contains a Y chromosome, the baby is male. In other words, a baby's sex is determined by which chromosome from the male unites with the female's ovum. None of this was known until the discovery of genetics in the 20th century. Indeed, in many cultures, it was believed that a baby's sex was determined by the female's body. That was why women were blamed when they gave birth to girls. 13 centuries before human genes were discovered, the Qur'an, however, revealed information that denies this superstition and referred to the origin of sex being not with women, but with the semen coming from men. If we keep on examining the facts announced to us in the Qur'an about the formation of people, we again encounter some very important scientific miracles. When the sperm of the male unites with the ovum of the female, the essence of the baby to be born is formed. This single cell, known as zygote in biology, will instantly start to reproduce by dividing and eventually becoming a piece of flesh. This, of course, can only be seen by human beings with the aid of a microscope. The zygote, however, does not spend its developmental period in a void. It clings to the uterus just like roots that are firmly fixed to the earth by their tendrils.
This bond enables the zygote to obtain the substance essential to its development from the mother's body.
Here, at this point, a very significant miracle of the Qur'an is revealed. While referring to the zygote developing in the mother's womb, God uses the word alaq in the Qur'an. Recite, "In the name of your Lord, who created man from alaq." Recite, "And your Lord is the most generous." The meaning of the word alaq in Arabic is a thing that clings to some place. The word is literally used to describe leeches that cling to a body to suck blood. Certainly, it is not a coincidence that such an appropriate word is used for the zygote developing in the mother's womb. This confirms once again that the Qur'an is a revelation from God, the Lord of all the worlds. While it is told in the Qur'an that it is easy for God to bring man to life after death, the fingerprint of man is particularly emphasized. Yes, we are able to put together in perfect order the very tips of his fingers. The emphasis on fingerprints has a very special meaning. This is because everyone's fingerprint is unique to himself. Every person who is alive or who has ever lived in this world has a set of unique fingerprints. That is why fingerprints are accepted as a very important identity card exclusive to its owner and used for this purpose around the world. But what is important is that this feature of the fingerprint was only discovered in the late 19th century. Before then, people regarded fingerprints as ordinary curves without any specific importance or meaning. However, in the Qur'an, God points to fingertips, which did not attract anyone's attention at that time, and calls our attention to their importance, an importance that could only be understood in our age. Another important aspect of the information mentioned in the verses of the Qur'an is the developmental stages of a human in the mother's womb. It is stated in the verses that in the mother's womb, first the bones develop, and then the muscles form, which wrap around these bones. We then formed the drop into an embryo, and formed the embryo into a lump, and formed the lump into bones, and clothed the bones in flesh, and then brought him into being as another creature. Blessed be God, the best of creators. Embryology is a branch of science that studies the development of embryo in the mother's womb. Until very recently, embryologists assumed that the bones and muscles in an embryo developed at the same time. For this reason, for a long time, some people claimed that these verses were in conflict with science. Yet, advanced microscopic research conducted by virtue of new technological developments has revealed that the revelation of the Qur'an is word by word correct. These examinations showed that the development inside the mother's womb takes place in just the way it is described in the verses. First, the cartilage tissue of the embryo ossifies. Then, muscular cells that are selected from amongst the tissue around the bones come together and wrap around these bones. This event is described in a scientific publication with the following words. During the 7th week, the skeleton begins to spread throughout the body, and the bones take their familiar shapes. At the end of the 7th week, and during the 8th week, the muscles take their positions around the bone forms. In short, man's developmental stages, as they are described in the Qur'an, are in perfect harmony with the findings of modern embryology. In the Qur'an, it is related that man is created in a three-stage process in the mother's womb. He creates you stage by stage in your mother's wombs in a threefold darkness. That is God, your Lord. Sovereignty is His. There is no God but Him. So what has made you deviate? The Arabic expression translated into English as a threefold darkness indicates three dark regions involved during the development of the embryo. These are A, the darkness of the abdomen, B, the darkness of the womb, and C, the darkness of the placenta. As we have seen, modern biology has revealed that the embryological development of the baby takes place in the manner revealed in the verse, in three dark regions.
Moreover, advances in the science of embryology show that these regions consist of 3 layers each.
The lateral abdominal wall comprises 3 layers. The external oblique, the internal oblique, and the transversus abdominis muscles. Similarly, the wall of the womb also consists of 3 layers: the epimetrium, the myometrium, and the endometrium. Similarly again, the placenta surrounding the embryo also consists of 3 layers: the amnion, the internal membrane around the fetus, the chorion, the middle amnion layer, and the decidua, outer amnion layer. It is also pointed out in this verse that a human being is created in the mother's womb in 3 distinct stages. Indeed, modern biology has revealed that the baby's embryological development takes place in 3 stages in the mother's womb. Today, in all the embryology textbooks studied in the faculties of medicine, this subject is taken as an element of basic knowledge. For instance, in Basic Human Embryology, a fundamental reference text in the field of embryology, this fact is stated as follows. The life in the uterus has 3 stages: pre-embryonic, first 2.5 weeks, embryonic, until the end of the 8th week, and fetal, from the 8th week to labor. These phases refer to the different developmental stages of a baby. Information on the development in the mother's womb became available only after observations done with modern devices. Yet, just like many other scientific facts, these pieces of information are imparted in the verses of the Qur'an in a miraculous way.
The fact that such detailed and accurate information was given in the Qur'an at a time when people had scarce information on medical matters is clear evidence that the Qur'an is the Word of God.
Another miraculous aspect of the Qur'an is its prediction of future events, all of which have so far been fulfilled. This is one of the proofs that the Qur'an is the Word of God. The 27th verse of Surat al-Fath, for example, gave the believers glad tidings that they would conquer Mecca, which was then under the occupation of pagans.
God has confirmed His messenger's vision with truth. You will enter the Masjid al-Haram in safety, God willing, shaving your heads and cutting your hair without any fear. He knew what you did not know and ordained, in place of this, an imminent victory.
In close consideration, the verse is seen to announce yet another victory that will take place before the victory of Mecca.
Indeed, as stated in the verse, the believers first conquered the Khaybar fortress, which was under the control of the Jews, and then entered Mecca.
Another piece of news that the Qur'an gives about the future is found in the first verses of Surat al-Rum, which refers to the Byzantine Empire, the eastern part of the later Roman Empire. In these verses, it is stated that the Byzantine Empire had met with a great defeat, but that it would soon gain victory. The Romans have been defeated in the lowest land, but after their defeat they will themselves be victorious within 3 to 9 years. The affair is God's from beginning to end. These verses were revealed around 620, almost 7 years after the severe defeat of Christian Byzantium at the hands of the Persians in 1613 and 1614, when the Byzantines lost Jerusalem. Yet it was revealed in the verses that Byzantium would shortly be victorious. In fact, Byzantium had then suffered such heavy losses that it seemed impossible for it to even maintain its existence, let alone be victorious again. Following their defeat of the Byzantines at Antioch in 613, the Persians seized control of Damascus, Cilicia, Tarsus, Armenia, and Jerusalem. The loss of Jerusalem in 614 was particularly traumatic for the Byzantines, for the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was destroyed and the Persians seized the true cross, the symbol of Christianity. Not only the Persians, but also Avars, Slavs, and Lombards posed serious threats to the Byzantine Empire. The Avars had come as far as the walls of Constantinople. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius had ordered the gold and silver in churches to be melted and turned into money in order to meet the expenses of the army. Many governors had revolted against Emperor Heraclius, and the empire was on the point of collapse.
Mesopotamia, Cilicia, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and Armenia, which earlier belonged to Byzantium, were invaded by the idolater Persians.
In short, everyone was expecting the Byzantine Empire to be destroyed. But right at that moment, the first verses of Surat ar-Rum were revealed, announcing that Byzantium would gain triumph in 3 to 9 years. This predicted victory seemed so impossible that the Arab polytheists thought it would never come true. Like all the other predictions in the Qur'an, however, this one also came true. In 622, Heraclius gained a number of victories over the Persians and conquered Armenia. In December 627, a decisive battle between Byzantium and the Persian Empire was fought at Nineveh, some 50 kilometers east of the Tigris River near Baghdad. The Byzantine army defeated the Persians again. A few months later, the Persians had to make an agreement with Byzantium, which obligated them to return the territories they had taken from them.
The Byzantine victory was completed when Emperor Heraclius defeated the Persian ruler Khosrow II in 630, recaptured Jerusalem, and regained the true cross for the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
At the end, the victory of the Romans, proclaimed by God in the Qur'an, miraculously came true within the verses stated 3 to 9 years time frame. Another miracle revealed in these verses is the announcement of a geographical fact that could not be discovered by anyone in that period. In the third verse of Surat ar-Rum, we are informed that the Romans had been defeated in the lowest region of the earth. This expression, Adna al-Ard in Arabic, is interpreted as a nearby place in many translations. Yet this is not the literal meaning of the original statement, but rather a figurative interpretation of it. The word adna in Arabic, derived from the word dani, which means low, means the lowest. The word art means world. Therefore, the expression adna al-art means the lowest place on earth. The Dead Sea, one of the regions in which the Byzantines were defeated in 1613 and 1614, is the lowest region on earth. As stated earlier, for Christian Byzantium, the loss of the true cross was the heaviest blow in that defeat in Jerusalem, located near the shores of the Dead Sea. At 399 meters below sea level, the Dead Sea is the lowest place on Earth's surface. This means that the Byzantines were defeated at the lowest part of the world, just as stated in the verse. The most interesting point lies in the fact that the altitude of the Dead Sea could only be measured with modern measurement techniques. Before that, it was impossible for anyone to know that it was the lowest region on the surface of the earth. Yet, this region was stated to be the lowest point on the earth in the Qur'an.
Hence, this provides another evidence that the Qur'an is divine revelation.
Apart from the miraculous characteristic of the Qur'an, which we have looked into so far, it also has a mathematical miracle. An example of this is the numbers of repetitions of some of the words in the Qur'an. Some related words are surprisingly repeated the same number of times. Below are such words and the numbers of their repetitions in the Qur'an. The word day, yawm, is repeated 365 times in singular form, while its plural and dual forms, days, ayam, and yawmain, together are repeated 30 times. The number of repetitions of the word month, shahar, is 12. The word payment or reward is repeated 117 times, while the expression forgiveness, mughfirah, which is one of the basic moral principles of the Qur'an, is repeated exactly twice as many times. The number of times the words world, dunya, and hereafter, akhira, are repeated is also the same, 115. The statement of 7 heavens, Sab'a Samawat, is repeated 7 times. The creation of the heavens, Khalq al-Samawat, is also repeated 7 times. The word faith, Iman, without genitive, is repeated 25 times throughout the Qur'an, as is also the word infidelity or covering over the truth, Kufr. The words paradise and hell are each repeated 77 times. The word Satan, shaitan, is used in the Qur'an 88 times, as is the word angels, malaika. The word zakah is repeated 32 times, while the number of repetitions of the word blessing, barakah, is also 32. The words man and woman are also employed equally, 23 times. Sun, shams, and light, nur, both appear 33 times in the Qur'an. In counting the word light, only the simple forms of the words were included. The expression, the righteous, al-abrar, is used 6 times, but the wicked, al-fujar, is used half as much, i.e. 3 times. Human being is used 65 times. The sum of the number of mentions of the stages of man's creation is the same, i.e. human being, 65, soil, turab, 17, drop of sperm, nutfah, 12, embryo, alaq, 6,
half-formed lump of flesh, mudgah,
3, bone, idham, 15, flesh, lahm, 12. The word land appears 13 times in the Qur'an, and the word sea 32 times, giving a total of 45 references. If we divide that number by that of the number of references to the land, we arrive at the figure 28.8888888888889%. The number of total references to land and sea, 45, divided by the number of references to the sea in the Qur'an, 32, is 71.1111111111%. Extraordinarily, these figures represent the exact proportions of land and sea on the earth today. Every piece of information shows us an apparent fact. The Qur'an is such a book that all the news related in it has proved to be true, and facts that no one could ever have known at the time were announced in its verses. Certainly this proves clear evidence that the Qur'an is not the word of man. The Qur'an is the word of God, the originator of everything, and the Almighty, who encompasses everything with His knowledge. In a verse, God remarks on the Qur'an, "If it had been from other than God, they would have found many inconsistencies in it." Not only are there no inconsistencies in the Qur'an, every piece of information it contains reveals the miracle of this divine book more and more each day. What falls to man is to hold fast to this divine book revealed by God and receive it as his one and only guide. In one of the verses, God tells us the following, "And this is a book we have sent down and blessed, so follow it, and have fear of God, so that hopefully you will gain mercy." This film is based on Harun Yahya's book, The Miracles of the Qur'an.